I'm Arash Homampour of the Homampour Law Firm. The Corder case was a wrongful death case involving a pedestrian who had been drinking, was crossing mid-block, arguably jaywalking, and he was struck by a police officer. The focus of the case was twofold. It was first liability, because it was a difficult case in that there was a pedestrian who had been drinking, who crossed mid-block, and who was hit by a police officer. Obviously, those are a difficult set of liability facts because of comparative fault of the pedestrian, as well as the fact that you're suing a police department. The second component of that case was damages. He left behind 2 daughters, and the defense arguments were that he was a long-term alcoholic who had fractured relationships with his family members, wasn't working, and so therefore the argument was his life wasn't worth as much. The first challenge was establishing that the police officer did something wrong, and that required pretty extensive scientific analysis as to what the police officer did, what he was confronted with, what opportunities he had, and a lot of the evidence that his vehicle would have allowed us to see what happened was not preserved. So we really had to sort of start from scratch and do basic reconstruction, and it was not an easy case in terms of liability. MotionLit's visuals really helped make the case clearly understandable to a jury and allowed anyone to follow along as to how this event was totally preventable. And specifically, we obtained videotape deposition testimony of the officer that he was in fact speeding. He was going, in his own words, at least 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. He was familiar with this particular area. He was a professional driver who had to practice defensive driving. He knew that there were bars on both sides of the street that this pedestrian had crossed on, and he knew that because there were bars, he had to pay special attention because people may be impaired crossing the street from one bar to the other, and he basically didn't do what he had been trained to do, and this accident happened as a result. Well, MotionLit's demand package video was really instrumental in getting the case resolved. First, they did a wonderful video that incorporated all the videotape deposition testimony, the scientific evidence, the graphics that really pinned down liability for anyone looking at this case. MotionLit did some very powerful video interviews of the family members that really brought the decedent to life so that a jury could see, despite the fact that he had a drinking problem, he was just like everybody else, a loving, connected, wonderful human being that died and left this earth way too early. And so MotionLit's video allowed us to address both liability and damages in a concise but very provocative way that whoever was deciding to resolve the case realized they had serious exposure. First of all, if you have any medium or larger size case, you have to spend money on visuals because visual information it works. Jurors are used to getting information visually. And again, when you present something visually, it's all the work beforehand that forces you to simplify your case, focus on what is important so that you have a concise visual that jurors can follow along with. So it's a win-win situation. So medical art illustrations are really important so that when you get in front of a jury and you have a competent, credible expert, the expert can walk the jury through each of the injuries someone suffered, explain them, and has a visual point of reference so the jury can follow along, rather than an expert talking about a herniated disc in the abstract. The jury has no idea where it is, what it involves, what does it look like. And so using medical art illustrations really allows a jury to follow along and many times see how horrific the procedure is and how it impacts someone's life. I would definitely recommend MotionLit to any law firm looking to get better results in their cases through video demands, and ultimately, again, through helping you get your case focused, simplified, ready, and the best presentation possible so that you can get the best result possible.